Hello, world, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours, a podcast where we yap about the creative world and everything in between it. Today, we're going to be learning from Jason Loomis, who is a longtime friend of mine and also a client. And what I love about this conversation that we had is that we get to see the other side of the creative process, which is the client's perspective. As I will mention later when I introduce Jason, he is just somebody who I believe is a design ally because he just absolutely gets it when it comes to graphic design and storytelling and the value that it brings to his work. As per usual, our conversations go all over the place and we cover quite a bit of topics today. First, we talk about what motivated him into bringing graphic design into his body of work. And then we nerd out a little bit about presentation design and strategy. We talk lots about storytelling and what that has done for us. And then we take a quick little pivot into what it's like from my lived experience, what it's like working with a C-suite level executive. And if you're a fan of Ted Lasso or The Good Place or Spaceballs, we do have a little bit of a trivia moment at the end for Jason. I really enjoyed our conversation and I'm very grateful to Jason and folks like Jason who are on the other side of the creative process, who totally understand and appreciate the value that we bring to the table. And I'm so excited for you all to hear this conversation. Let's get into it. All right, so today our guest is Jason Loomis. He is a Chief Information Security Officer, and we met in 2015, so nearly a decade ago, when we both worked at Textile. I first started working with Jason when I would help format some of his presentations. Then it turned into creating some of his newsletters, and then eventually a logo and tons of t-shirts. After our time at Textile, I've been so grateful that we've remained friends and he's kept me as a consultant pretty much everywhere he's gone. So very thankful for that. Other than his deep well of pop culture references, there are two things I really admire about Jason as a friend and as a client. First off is he always strives to make information more accessible. The concepts behind cybersecurity, as I've gotten to know them after a full decade, is that they can be quite complex and sometimes a little boring and dry, but Jason has always found ways, either through cartoon animations or movie references, to make cybersecurity more approachable. But more importantly, and why I brought him to our show, is that he truly understands and appreciates the value that graphic design brings to the table. So I know that was a very long intro, but I wanted to make sure I gave you your flowers. But thank you, Jason, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Crislin. This is great to be here.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before we hit record is I really wanted to bring you on here because a majority of our guests are folks who are in the creative industry, designers themselves, but I really wanted to bring you on to hear from the other side. I know we joked about like the non-creative side, but really more so from the client's perspective, because you are just someone who understands what it means to bring on a designer, why things should be elevated, why the extra care should be thought of. And my first question for you is, when did it click for you when you were like, oh, that needs to be designed, or like I also need my stuff to get designed?
That's a really good question. I don't know if there was an initial spark or one moment, in my life that went, oh my gosh, that is a really good question. I'm pretty confident I realized it at Textile. Or I realized I could do, I realized I could do something about it at Textile. And that was only because you worked for us at the time. And that was the first time I was given contact and a resource of a thing called a graphic designer. I think before I would just struggle on my own to build a PowerPoint. I know I've used PowerPoints previously to present stories, but not in a graphical way. And it wasn't until I met you at Textile that I understood like the power of that and how much better in storytelling it can be.
So with storytelling, and you and I have been working on, for reference, like I have worked on so many presentations for
Many,
you.
many stories. Yes.
Many stories, many metaphors with cybersecurity and making it more relevant and making it more approachable. We've talked about storytelling on your podcast when I was your guest. And from your perspective, how important is it to, most of our listeners are going to be emerging designers, but for folks who might be at your level, at the C-suite level, who are thinking about their presentation, how important is storytelling to you as a speaker?
Absolutely effing critical. Like, I wouldn't be able to do my job. I wouldn't be as, I mean, maybe I could, and I just wouldn't be successful at it. Not that I'm any kind of success, but,
No, yeah.
with the limited success I have, I have to be able to tell a story. And it's not just the words, but the visuals on the page. I actually abhor, I think you and I agree a lot on this, I abhor when you're drowned by data PowerPoints. And please ask me about why those things still exist, because they do, and there's still organizations and even teams within organizations and boards of directors that still thrive on that. And it's just, it's a data, it's a white paper, but put into some PowerPoint format with a bunch of bullets and really tiny writing. I do not prefer to present that way, because you can't tell an impactful story. People do read aheads. If you're familiar, people who are listening to this are familiar with that, where they start reading and they're not even listening to you, so you don't get a chance to tell the story or to give an analogy, during the story, because they're just reading your slide. So it's very frustrating. So
yeah, and unfortunately, that lives even on through. I mean, in the academic space, it's very much like that. There are some professors who also just put a ton of text on the screen, and I think a lot of that is just so they don't forget the content.
The talking points, yeah. That's what the note section is for. Hello, people.
The note sections, but also one thing I really like about when you're presenting is your content. I've always felt like even if you left the presentation, like the power went out, you'd still be able to give your presentation. And I think that's what's beautiful about the storytelling that you do, is that it's coming from the heart. And because you really, really understand what you need to say.
Well, not always. I'll be honest.
Well, you practice at least.
That's what I use the notes section for. I'll practice, or I'll have in the notes section for, mostly for the unplanned questions, or the what about. So you got to prepare for those if you're presenting any questions you might have. And there's always technical details I might miss if I'm trying to tell a technical story and it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. It's often because I have a team of experts behind me that tell me how it works, and then I have to go translate that into a story for everyone to understand.
After almost 10 years of working together, I feel like you've definitely developed a design eye. I think so.
Thank you.
You might not think it's sharp, but I think it's quite sharp. Because the fact that you even understand that you need it is one thing. Has there been anything now that you have your design eye that you've seen that you're just like, oh, I would have not done it that way?
Constantly, yes. Yeah. I'm working on a deck right now, actually, for my board. I report to the board every quarter, and I have this slide that shows our top 10 risks, just standard stuff that you give to boards. Here's the things I'm really worried about. And I gave it to my team. Hey, I need you to update this slide. And I'm sure you've seen this, where it's a box, but the text is this big. If everybody can see my fingers, it's like 10, like space 10. Like, can you fill up the box so people can at least read it and see the title of it? It is so frustrating. They just, people just don't. I think your average bear doesn't have a design eye. Yeah, and they can use it.
Yeah, and what would you say to folks who are in the C-suite level? I'm curious. Not that you do this, but why do folks do that? Like, what have you seen? Is it time? Is it like you said? Like,
do you mean the example I gave you where my team filled in very little font in the big?
Yeah,
square?
I wonder what is that from? Like,
I think sometimes I
get those decks too.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they don't know any better. I think they also don't think about. They think only from their framing, and they're really close to their monitor. This happens a lot in your presentations, right? The other thing you got to ask is, okay, where are you presenting? Where's your audience? Are you sitting in an auditorium? That changes it if you're on a Zoom call and it's on your computer screen. So I think also that they're thinking, oh, I'm going to be on a computer screen and someone's reading it. Well, no, this is a presentation in a Zoom meeting and a lot of people in a room at a board meeting. So you're sitting on a conference table and the screen's way over there. So they don't think, are they going to be able to see that across the room?
Yeah. Yeah, that's context is everything. And I think I remember even working with you, some of the first few questions that I have for you when you present a deck to me is like, are you standing? Are you sitting?
Yeah.
Like, how far are you from your from your screen?
Yep.
How many people? Because context again is everything. And there's even a big difference between a presentation where you're standing in front of it versus a where you're emailing it when there's no voiceover. Like there's two different.
Exactly. Very different. Can I have another thing is like when you do videos. And so, for example, a lot of things are instructional videos, or we want a demo, like a demonstration video. Imagine a demonstration of a new AI tool. And teams will often just record the entire screen. And so,
Right.
sure, your monitor, it looks great. But when you're sitting across a room, you need to zoom in on the sections that you're trying to highlight with the video to show
Right,
so
right,
people
right.
can actually see from across the room, and especially blind people like me who wear the glasses now can't see. You got to take that into account.
Right.
But that's
right.
what that's what graphic designers are for. That's
Right,
what you
yeah.
guys, that's what you guys do.
We think about these things, and I really admire that you put so much thought into this, because it's sometimes like as graphic designers we work with clients and it's like, oh, we'll just make it look pretty, or like
Ugh.
or just jazz it up, or just zhuzh it up. And I feel that when I've worked with you, you've developed the vocabulary to let me know like, oh, this is like, can you fix this, because this is like you're more clear about what you're looking for. Sometimes I still kind of have to read in between the lines, but I think you and I have worked long enough to know that like, I'm like, oh, okay, I know what Jason exactly what he needs here. But I feel that you can tell me, instead of telling like zhuzh it up, you're like, can you create more emphasis around this? And I'm like, oh my god, so thankful.
Well, that's a great way. You know, I probably 15 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have said that same thing. Can you just make it look better? But after working with you for so long, you realize that it's like if you're into movies, you know that everything in a movie is there for a reason. Good movies. They don't put a scene of someone reaching for a coffee cup and film it just to reach for a coffee cup. There's some meaning behind that. And the same thing goes with the PowerPoint. If you don't just fluff it up, everything should have some meaning in there. Are you trying to direct the person's eye to something? Is there a reason for this animation portion? Or is there a reason why one font might be bigger than the other? You know, that to me, everything is part of that thought process.
Right. Everything is very intentional. And that's the work that I've seen from you. It's like, it's, you know, when we're doing your illustrations, one of my favorite projects till this day, well, actually, no, one of my favorite projects till this day is when you had me build like this dashboard with MindBody, and it was like beautiful data. I'm just like a data person, also like tables, and it was just like so fun. But one of my favorite ones was when you did the illustration about, I can see it, it's the boat with the holes.
Yes,
And
that
you
was
were
a great
that was
visual.
such a great one. I kind of already forgot what it was about, but I think it was about risk and making sure that the person who's in charge is moving the boat and not trying to close up all the holes, and so that the boat doesn't sink. And for
Close.
some
That's pretty close. It wasn't just the person in charge; it was the entire team. So when your team is so busy, you know, in security, if you're so busy patching and you can't get ahead, you can't see the other threats out there. You're just busy bailing water. You know, you're not
Right.
really going to get anywhere. You got to patch the holes first to stop the bleeding, sort of thing, or stop the water from rushing out. So then you can actually pay attention to where you're going and
right.
make some progress.
Right. And so even for someone like myself who has no background in cybersecurity, was able to understand. I mean, I did a really awful job at recalling what that was, but that was also a couple of years ago.
No, that was you were 80%. You were 80%. It just wasn't an individual; it was a team effort of that.
Yeah.
Bailing the water out.
And I feel that one of my favorite, again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is like one of my favorite things that you make things accessible. And as now an educator, my heart flutters for anyone who tries to take complex ideas and make them more approachable and accessible. Does that come from a place like, is that something that you've always done, or is something that you've learned because cybersecurity has always been a little complex and you're just like, where's that motivation from?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it's definitely learned. So if you don't have the talent or you find it hard to do that, you can learn to do it. I wasn't just born with that capability. It comes over time, and I don't believe it's unique to security. I believe it's unique to any topic that you're trying to express to someone who isn't an expert in that field, or or subject matter expert. You know, you should always try to explain it to the lowest common denominator. There's that famous saying, if you can explain it to a fifth grader, only if you really understand something can you teach it, right? That's the best way to know a subject is to teach it. And then teaching to a fifth grader means you got to really know your subject because you have to break down complex stuff so that, a kid can understand, or we call them CEOs in my world. You can explain it to a fifth grader. But that's important to me because I'm in a room full of finance experts, HR, legal, accounting, developers. They're not all going to be speaking the same language. So if I have to give a concept across, I have to explain it in a way that everybody's going to understand it.
Which kind of like sparks a question. Now, because sometimes I feel that I get pushback when I don't like to use the word dilute because that's not what I'm doing. I'm making it more approachable. But sometimes I get pushback where they're like, well, if you're going to do that, you're lowering the rigor, you're lowering the quality, or it's like, oh, what do you think they are? Like a bunch of kids at the table. So what would you say to those folks who are like, well, I don't want to have to bring the quote unquote, bring it down for people to understand. Like I'm an expert. I know what I'm doing.
I think it depends on who you're talking to. If your COO is saying that, you probably just want to, okay, fine, I'll make the presentation the way you want. They're wrong. I don't know, but they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong because there are going to people, my company actually has this problem. We'll do company all hands and they'll talk about numbers, the finances of the company, but they'll use acronyms that are great for finance. They'll even might spell out the acronym, but they don't understand what that acronym means.
Right.
What does free cash flow mean? What does, ARR? And they'll assume because they've said it maybe a year ago. That's the other thing. Your audience always changes at work with a turnover rate of 15 to 20%. Over 2-3 years, you've got, 50% new people. So you can't assume that what you said 2 years ago when you spell out that acronym. So in my opinion, every presentation should be explain the acronym, explain why it's important, what it means, and this is what the number was this year.
Right.
And honestly, most companies, our company does that. Every company I've been at will just assume the audience is in on these funky acronyms. And I found myself, this is how I correct my team on doing that, because my team's guilty of it in our own team. So I have a cybersecurity offsite with people from governance, risk, and compliance, which are like the people that kind of the watchers on the wall, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones. And then we have SOC, which are like, the knights in the actual, who are the knights watching the wall? Anyways, the Jon Snow people. The fighters, the ones that are actually picking up the swords. So we have all these different team members, and they're explaining it like from their perspective, and use these acronyms and these terminology. So sometimes I'll stop and I'll just say, hey, I have a question real quick, and I'll turn to the audience and I go, did everyone understand that acronym? What that means? And they'll be shy at first, and I'll be like, and then I'll randomly call on people that I know don't know it. So I'll be like, Gary, what's a SOC 2 report? I don't know. And I'm like, and then I'll reiterate how as a team, one of our culture is to always, disagree and have this trust and debate and conflict. I'm like, well, we should please everybody raise your hand and say, hey, I don't understand that. And then the presenter is definitely getting it because they're like, oh, I just assumed everybody knew what I know. So that's one of the practices I do.
That's a beautiful practice. It's just assume. It's like you don't want to assume that your audience doesn't know, but you want to really ensure that you're holding their hand and making sure that they understand essentially your story. Because when you talked about acronyms, like again, it happens in the academic space, but also remember when we were working together, like EBITDA was like one of those terms that I was like, I feel like it was getting thrown around every 5 seconds, and I was like, and I know what the acronym stood for. And it wasn't until I got into business school that I was like, oh, that's why that was so important.
That's how they cheat with that number.
I was like, oh, gotcha. Like I didn't. And I remember even like when I was in school, I was like, oh yeah, we used to use that as like a measurement. And they were like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because it makes the numbers look good. That's why.
Well, yeah, I learned that a little bit later. But yeah, I really relate to the taking a moment to pause and allow people to take in what they're hearing and allowing space for them to ask questions if they don't get it.
Oh man,
because, like,
1,000% on that. Pause. Yeah. Can't speak to that enough. Pause between your slides. Give a minute for people just to kind of think on it and then go to the next one.
Right, because it's like, especially when you're talking about something as complex. I mean, there's again different presentations, right? And it's funny now. I didn't plan for this to turn into a presentation conversation, but I'm glad that it is because obviously we both love it. But there's also again the audience of like when you're at your conferences, like you can talk about SOC and your risks and throw all your acronyms out there, but when you're talking to again your board or even the employees and explaining to them why they should take their phishing emails very seriously, which by the way, I want the world to know I take those very seriously. And thanks to Jason, every time I get like a fishy email, I do report it, and I always get this like, congratulations, you you did not fall for the trap. And I was like, yes.
Nice.
I was taught.
I
was taught very well. Where was I going with this? But yeah, just allowing for folks like myself to understand the importance of it. Because like I'll be super honest, I remember when I was at Textile, you would send these emails and your newsletters before I jumped in and started assisting with the design part. But I would get them and you would always just have images of movie clips. And again, I'm the worst person on the planet because I don't know any movies. But I kept scrolling because it's like, I mean, I can't remember most of them now, but it's like, this is as bad as if, this big monster came in and like tore everything apart. And I was like, damn, that's really bad if that happened. So I've always appreciated that you've taken it that extra level.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit away from presentation and about working with folks like yourself, so C-suite levels, because I personally have learned that there's a big difference between, obviously, there's a lot of different clients, but I feel like C-suite level is like a special kind of client, and not in a bad way, but many of our listeners, again, are likely going to be emerging designers or folks who might want to work with C-suite leaders. What advice would you give to them about working with folks at that level?
Figure out, and I don't have an answer for this, I just know it needs to be done. Figure out how to be accommodating, but yet in some way giving direction to them, because 90% of the time they're going to be wrong with what they want to do, and you might have a better idea of a way to do it. You're able to do this with me because we work well together, but if you're you're a consultant, right? They hired you for a job, so you're not even an employee, and you're just, God, please, I just got to show that I'm good at this. But so you don't want to push back too hard when they think it's the best idea in the world to have 100 words in this one slide. I think a way you used to do it for me was really good, was giving alternatives. Is going, okay, hey, here's what I took for your, what you said to do. Here's the idea that you did, and hey, I threw this other slide up because I thought this might be another way to approach it.
Okay, so giving alternatives.
Give alternatives as in the back of your head, you're saying, this is the worst fucking idea ever. They should not be doing this. You should do it this way. But you know what? You can't tell them that as you're just listening to the person or her, she's telling you how she wants to lay it out. You go, yeah, okay, great. And then when you're giving it back to them, say, hey, let me walk you through what I did here. And you can show them some alternatives.
Right.
To get them the right direction.
Yeah, so it's almost better that if I were to present you, or if anyone was going to present you an alternative, you would want to see it versus being told. Right.
I would, but maybe you don't have, sometimes you might not have the time, right? They're just, I don't have time, email me the thing, especially with the C level, you may not get that. So you could, in your communication to them, hey, I've presented you, here's your slides as you wanted. Hey, by the way, you'll see every other slide is an alternative slide that was a different way to approach the presentation if you're interested. I thought you might like this, blah, blah, blah. So and in a way, they're getting 2 for 1. They're getting what they originally asked for, and they're getting, another way to sort of look at the presentation, which is where I think you can put in your magic and what you know about graphic design to tell the story better than what they dictated to you to do.
Right. When
you did that with you, by the way, you did that with me. I'm 80% certain. I'm getting old, so my memory's failing.
No.
At that mind body presentation, that's how we did it. I remember you giving me different alternatives and like A/B testing me. Like, ooh, yeah, B, let's do that one, and that's how we got to better answers. Yeah, because
and I'm not trying to, and I know it sounds like I'm fishing for compliments because we're talking about my experience with
you.
But that's not the case at all. Because I really would, like, working with C-suite level folks is different because y'all are always busy. You're getting
annoying.
pulled in 500 different directions. I almost feel like sometimes you just have to stay at that surface level in order to not drown in your work. So you have to keep moving. But that was when I offered you options. It was because that was my gentle way of being like, hey, here, like, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you what you want. But if your goal is to, XYZ, I'm going to give you these options. And if you don't like it, then if that's not what you want, then that's not what you want. Though I do want to like make sure I put an asterisk there that for our designers who are listening, or creatives, is that when you do that extra work, sometimes that work is not billable, right? But in my experience, why I like doing that with you is because I wanted to show you that I'm on your side. That if you said that you want to make sure that you hit this presentation with your audience, and you're showing me, and you don't do this anymore, but you show me like a wall of text, I'm going to be like, well, like I'm looking out for you. So here are some slides, and like you've always been so gracious, and you let me build everything that I do. But for some folks, for some clients, like that's not always the case.
Yeah, but it's going to get you the future work. It's going to get you
right.
that first gig. They're going to trust you now. They're going to know that you're not just an AI program taking what they just said, do this, and then creating it. You're like giving some pushback and some other ideas and direction, and that's where the value is. So you're proving your value, and then over time, you don't have to do that anymore. They just work with you like we do now. I don't think you've A/B tested me since then. No. It's just, hey, why don't we do this? What about this idea? And you don't ever have to do it.
Well, it's gone to. I've loved our conversations, how it started with like very lengthy calls, right? And like you would tell me everything. And now it's like when you pass me a presentation.
Oh my God, it's so fat. Yeah. It's like a series of grunts. Okay.
They're like literally like 5 minutes, and they're like, here's what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, got it.
Yep. Yeah. Next.
And I think
That's
like
very
there's
efficient.
like very, very little revisions that happen in between those. Like I think one or two. And I would say, like, it's not just me, but part of that is like because you know what story you're telling, and I think that's where I would implore C-suite levels or executives where, like, if you know your story, the designer's going to be able to do what they need to do more efficiently. And that's what you've gotten. Like, that's why our work works really well together. So yeah, that's I do think back at like how quickly our calls are these days. What would you say is what helps you feel more supported? Like you mentioned, giving pushback, but in a way that's more gentle. But what would make you feel more supported as an executive when it comes to designers, but also let's just talk about professionals who are helping you in general? Like what can help?
Oh boy. That's a tough question.
It's a loaded question.
I didn't think I was going to be stumped on this podcast. So that'd be easy.
Well, hopefully the trivia questions later will be easier than
I want it to be good. I could just do the canned. Just be a communicator. Just make sure you're honest. I think you just got to showcase your talent and what you're bringing to the table in some way. And the one method that we came up with is that ability to show A/B test. Like here's another way to do it. I want to know that I'm working with someone very talented and that can that I don't have to direct and ask a bunch of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. What are you thinking here? Can you explain that to me? Can you tell me the story in a different way? Can you give me an analogy to that? Because I'm not understanding. If I was the graphic designer, just making sure that you're getting everything. Yeah. That's a tough question.
Let me flip the question. Maybe it'd be helpful. What are some things that you're like, oh, that's just an experience. It could either be experience with me or other designers you worked with. But like you're like, oh, I don't like that.
I don't think I've worked with many other designers.
Oh.
I've pretty much only worked with you.
I was holding space, so I'm like, it's fine if you're seeing
I've worked
designers.
I've worked with internal designers in my company. They're overwhelmed, so they're working. They're supporting 200 team members across 50 departments. So it's not like they can't give me that half hour feed and caring on a storytelling and then take the time to put into it. It's literally, I feel like interior graphic design programs are, if you have one at a company, are making it look pretty.
Right.
Like literally just spitting out a template. Like I think I've used ours once or twice, and it was terrible. Like I couldn't even use it. I was like, all you did
Templates are hard.
was take my words and put it into the template, and yeah.
I could go on forever about templates in general, because I think that this idea that this one and done moment with the template. So hold on, let me hold space. Time out. There are moments where a template is very useful, 100%. But I think that when you are like you go on, you do a lot of keynote speaking. Those are not often helpful because it just gets in your way.
No.
I feel.
Yeah, brand guidelines are great. You stick to the brand guidelines and then allow the creativity of, okay, you got to use these colors and always have the logo here in a general. But when you have a template that you got to use one of those slides, the slides don't fit the format. In fact, most of the time, none of the slides in my current company's template fit how I present.
Right.
I can never find the right slide and the right template. I have to go just custom create it and then follow the brand guidelines for what the slide looks like.
Usually when I work with you, I'm like, okay, what rules can I break?
Yeah.
What rules do I have to listen to? And then I just go and essentially, not that delete everything, but I do work within the brand guidelines, but I pretty much keep it an open slate, because that's another thing I think that's as a good tool for a designer is understanding the internal resources and what you can and can't do. Because I think there have been times where we got our hands slapped before because I think we've gone a little too far from the brand style guide.
I think it might be accurate. I think that might be accurate, yes. The best presentations I do with you, honestly, are the ones where I'm presenting externally and it's not related to my company. When I can just have free reign with what the presentation is going to look like. I remember the one I did on Jekyll and Hyde, if you remember that, about M&As, mergers and acquisitions. You helped me explain to a bunch of MBA students, about the importance of pre-acquisition and post-acquisition analysis of security and how security plays into it. And it was this Jekyll and Hyde and really cool colors. It was a really great presentation.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and I bet your audience, again, understands what you were saying. Because, again, I can't count how many times that when I was a student, they would bring in an expert, and then, they're an expert, but their presentation falls flat because they're speaking from the lens as an expert and not as a place of learning. And I think that's, as we're talking, it's like you do hold the space for a place of learning in all the work that you do, which is really wonderful.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So, this has been, we're going to be wrapping up soon. We're going to be moving into our trivia questions, but, I know I'm excited for these. We'll get into it, but I really want to appreciate your time talking about your side from the client side, because there are folks who are going to definitely want to work with C-suite folks. And again, y'all are just like a different beast. And so one thing that I know working from what I've learned from working with so many folks at the C-suite level is always kind of anticipating the next move as well. There's a little bit of that as well. You mean
as the graphic designer anticipating what the C-level might do?
Yeah, or just learning how, working with you. I'm like, I think Jason would probably want this to transition this way, or he might want to see an animation. Before, I would have, let's say there's 3 columns, and I would just design the 3 columns. And then eventually, as I've gone to learn to work with you, I know, I'm just going to give those 3 columns to you already animated in. And so I'm not sure if that's helpful for you, but I feel that for some C-suite folks, it's always nice to be 5 steps ahead of them if you can be.
I don't think a C-suite person would know how to do on-click animation in a PowerPoint. I'd be shocked if any of them do. I know how to do it through years of working with you, but yeah.
And really quickly, tangent, what's interesting to me? As I've worked with so many executives, a lot of y'all do presentations. And it always shocks me that it's just always, again, the same thing. It's the wall. Again, not you, but it's the wall of text. No, it's the, I agree. There's no real storytelling. And do you think that's just coming from a place of there's just not enough time?
No, one of it's because it doubles as, and I see this extensively. Like I don't do my storytelling when I'm presenting to the two executives above me where I'm currently at, because that format that you just talked about is exactly what they expect, and it's the norm. It's not the best, but it's the norm. And I think it's because of they want to be able to disseminate the same information even if you're not there for the presentation. So then that's when the storytelling may not apply. Like if I have a picture and I'm talking about a picture that's an analogy to something, they're going to be like, wait, I don't understand this PowerPoint. So they want the data in the PowerPoint.
Gotcha.
That's the driver for a lot of it. I can't make the meeting. I'm running on time. Just send me the deck and I'll read it.
Okay. So that's that makes a lot of sense now, because I've always wondered, I'm like, man, executives are giving presentation after presentation all the time, and we're seeing the same common things. And what's really unfortunate is sometimes, like you mentioned before, it's like when you're up there presenting, you lose a lot of that quality and the real reason of why we're even all having this conversation.
Yes.
But I understand now that what might be perpetuating it is because of just the life of corporate.
Yeah, not every executive could be in the meeting that needs to be. So they need to get the information disseminated. They're not going to watch the recording. They go, I'll just read the PowerPoint. But you'll see that I think they're good at having graphic design work with them when we're presenting outside. So external presentations to, trade shows, or when we're doing to a customer presentation. Those are aligned more with a storytelling function to them rather than just data on a page.
Yeah. So again, it always goes back to being super helpful to know from a designer's perspective, what is the end goal? Because sometimes, again, like as you mentioned, you might give me this deck and I might want to give you an alternative where it's more storytelling based. But the reality of it is that there's no opportunity for you to go up there and give that storytelling version. So sometimes it just has to be the deck with a bunch of words.
Data. Yeah.
But at least we could make it look a little pretty with some formatting and all that fun stuff.
And clicks. I have this one executive who I work with who abhors on-click animations like that and wants it all. And I'm like, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I hate that. Like, get rid of these. These don't go there.
Oh man, no! Because then I'm just going to be reading ahead of. Sometimes it's not even reading ahead. Because even as a professor, what I've learned, it's students will see that wall of text and they're like, I'm checked out. Yep. I feel like as a presenter, you have 0.2 seconds to let the person who's watching know whether or not your slide is about to hit or not. So I'm a big fan of on-click.
And I want them paying attention to me, not to the slide.
Exactly. Yeah. See, again, you get it. You just get it. Because again, I've always said presentations are like your sidekick, right? Like I always say, I'm bad movie reference girl, but like it's just like Batman and Robin. I feel like you are Batman and your slides are Robin, and you're the one that's supposed to be leading the conversation. I don't know if I got that reference correct, but
you're dating yourself a bit, but sure, yeah, that's a reference to
I feel like that's
George
the best.
Clooney and Chris O'Donnell in 1997. Yeah.
Okay, well, actually, talking about movies, so usually we do a spicy question, but because you have this beautiful well of knowledge of pop culture, I thought maybe just like a trivia or like a pop quiz, as it were. So
this has anything. This is pop culture. I can tell you already. You did not write these questions.
Excuse you. I was just about to say.
I didn't hear the question yet. I'm like, there's no way. I don't think I've landed maybe 1 out of 20 pop culture references on you where you're like, oh yeah, I got that one.
Correct. Yeah. For the record, I only watched Star Wars because you had me do a project where Darth Vader was involved, and the Darth Vader lore was very like woven into your story that I was like, I need to watch Star Wars. So
listeners, can you believe that she has not watched Star Wars until what, a year ago, 2 years ago? How many years ago? 5?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah, come on now.
And I've only watched the first, or I guess what you would consider the first 3. Yes, yeah. Right. I've been told that the last 3 were not very they're like, it's fine, and I was like, okay.
It's fine. You can leave it at the first 3. That's what you need to be able to call yourself a Star Wars fan.
So again, no surprise to Jason. I've seen bits and pieces because my husband watches some of these shows. Actually, he's watched all of these. But yes, I did use ChatGPT to to come. So we're gonna go from easy, medium, and hard. And for all I know, these could be very easy. But
Okay, here we go.
All right, Jason. In Ted Lasso, what is the name of the AFC Richmond pub where fans regularly gather?
Holy, this is the easy one?
Yeah.
Holy
is that
crap. No,
Is that-
I have no idea the name of the pub.
What?
No idea. No.
Okay, The Crown and Anchor.
Wow. That's okay. This is going to be a tough one.
Okay, well, we have two left. Okay, so maybe
What
these
setting
are like.
was ChatGPT on?
I was just like, I need an easy one, a medium
Enhanced
one, and a hard
analytic
one.
thinking. Okay.
And I was like, and this guy like really knows his stuff. So like, okay.
That one.
Okay. What is the fake name Eleanor gives when she first arrives to the good place? This one's a little bit of a curveball.
Oh man, I love that show too.
I remember we did a landing page with the good place.
I don't remember. It's not Ellen's a real name.
Well, that's what it is. Yep.
Oh, it's Ellen? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh.
Eleanor is actually her real name, but she claims that she's a human rights lawyer from Arizona because she's the fake one, allegedly.
Okay, the
I haven't
fake
watched
Eleanor, right? The real. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, cool. So you got like 1 out of 2
Half
so far.
of one. Yeah, 25.
Okay, this one I feel like I mean, again, I was just like, okay, for sure, he like knows his stuff. So in Spaceballs, okay, because you've thrown that reference at me 17 million
I
times.
thought I knew Ted Lasso.
What is the name of the giant vacuum used to seal the atmosphere of planet Druidia? No way! I thought you were going to hit these out of the...
No, I totally visualized the vacuum thing with the seal, and it had the hole, and it. It's got to be dated to like in the 80s. I don't. J. Edgar Hoover.
It's Mega Maid.
Mega Maid. Oh, because it was a maid. That's right. She was dressed up as a maid. That's right. Those are good questions. Those were hard. Wow.
Oh, well, God, I didn't know. I was like, oh, these are. I thought for sure. I was like, oh, Jason's gonna like breeze through these. So there was another question.
I would have run them by your husband. Hey,
honestly, I probably should have ran it by Jay, and I almost did, but I was like, I think these are fine. There was another one with Spaceballs where it was like, what's the password? Because it was like, it's about cybersecurity. Like, what's the password that they used in one scene? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, see that. See, you knew that one.
Yeah, I've used that in my training videos before. That same exact scene.
Yeah, that's how I remember. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast and talking like at length about presentations. And we as graphic designers really appreciate you and your allyship to the value that we bring to the table. Is there anything exciting that you're working on that you want to share, or like just tell people where they could find you? I know you have a few podcasts.
I only have one that's active, which I'm about to send you. So for who's listening, I actually hire Chrislam's company to do my podcast editing to turn it into something nice. So we have so look for a podcast called Gen, as in generation, Gen and Tonic. It's about the generational differences in the workplace. So it's myself who's representing not the Gen Z. I know you probably think it looking at me, you're like, you must be a Gen Z. But we have a Gen Z, a millennial, and a Gen X, and we talk about workplace culture and some of the differences. For example, our last episode we just recorded is about workplace attire and how the generations look at workplace attire differences.
That one was
It's exciting.
a good episode.
It'll be available on any Spotify or Apple. We actually re-recorded it, so I'm sending you the new version.
Oh, nice. It was a really good. The first one was really good.
Nice.
I really love, and I'm not just saying this because I'm your friend and the person who works on it, but I think that the podcast, the whole premise of it, of having conversations amongst 3 different generations, is so needed right now. So
Yeah,
very cool.
I hope it's going to hit.
Yeah, it will.
Thank
It
you.
will.
Thank you for having me, Chrislam. Thank you so
Yeah, of
much. This has
course.
been great. I'm looking
Thank
forward to
you.
listening into your episodes as they roll out.
Yay!